Welcome to Books and Brews, Titletown's Patriots, an America 250 mini-series.
Oh, it is great to be here.
This podcast is powered by Notebook LM.
Absolutely.
Today's weather forecast is powered by Fox Weather, and we are actually sitting right outside Drekijård Studios here in Green Bay, Wisconsin today.
Yeah, we are.
And honestly, you couldn't ask for a better Tuesday. It is June 23, 2026.
Just a perfect summer day.
Right. We've got this really beautiful mix of sun and clouds, looking at a high right around the mid-70s today, and then dipping down into the upper 50s tonight.
Which is ideal sleeping weather, by the way.
Oh, totally. And there's just this perfect light northeast breeze coming off the bay at like 6 miles per hour. But, with that beautiful 6-mile-per-hour breeze blowing across the sunny pavement right now, it's actually kind of hard to imagine that the foundation of the Green Bay Packers wasn't built on a pristine field.
No, it really wasn't.
It was built in the muddy, artillery-blasted trenches of World War I.
That is exactly where this story begins. And, to set the tone for what we are doing today for you, the listener, we need to be really clear about our mission here.
Yeah, lay it out for them.
So this deep dive is episode 1 of a 6-part miniseries. We're taking this right up to the grand finale on July 4th, 2026.
The big 250.
Exactly. We are celebrating America 250 by exploring the deeply intertwined history of Green Bay Packers players who, they traded their football uniforms for military ones and served in the United States Armed Forces.
It's an incredible legacy.
It is, and this is going to be patriotic, respectful, educational, and like always, highly conversational, a distinct Books and Brews experience. We're blending rich history, Green Bay camaraderie, and, of course, some uniquely crafted beverages.
Well, let's get right into that, because to truly understand this franchise, you have to strip away the giant video boards, the corporate sponsorships, all those modern luxury suites.
Right, you have to go way back.
Way back, all the way to the mud and the primitive leather helmets. But before we get into that mud, let's pour our first drink.
I am very ready for this.
So today's featured beverage for this segment is a nod to the World War I doughboys. They relied really heavily on coffee rations just to, survive the grueling conditions of the Western Front. I call this the trench and pendra draft.
I'm looking at it right now, and it looks completely indistinguishable from a heavy tavern stout. Like, it looks like a beer.
That's the visual trick of it. So we start with 8 ounces of a very dark, strong roast cold brew coffee.
Okay. Got a nice kick to it.
Definitely. Then, tying into our America 250 theme, we stir in 1 ounce of pure American maple syrup, which is, a classic colonial-era sweetener.
Nice touch.
Thanks. Finally, we take 2 ounces of heavy cream, whip it lightly with just a dash of nutmeg, and pour it right over the back of a spoon so it floats on top. It creates this stark white foam head.
Oh, wow.
The metaphor here is what really gets me, though. The bitter, acidic coffee cutting through that sweet, pure syrup, it perfectly mirrors how the harsh, brutal reality of returning combat veterans crashed directly into the emerging entertainment of professional sports.
Man, that is... Well, first of all, it's delicious.
Yeah.
But it is the perfect drink to ground us in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Because early Green Bay football was not the glamorous spectacle you see on television today. I mean, it was unregulated, it was deeply chaotic, and physically punishing.
Brutal, really.
Oh, incredibly brutal. You had guys playing on frozen dirt or literal snow-covered sandlots. The padding was minimal, and face masks didn't even exist yet.
Just skin and bone hitting frozen ground.
Exactly. And stepping directly into this brutal environment was a generation of men coming home from Europe. Let's look at 2 foundational veterans, Wally Ladrow and Gus Rosenow.
Right, the pioneers.
Both of these guys were infantrymen in the U.S. Army during World War I. Ladrow actually joined Curly Lambeau's very first squads, playing from 1919 to 1922.
The original squads.
Yep. And Rosenow joined in 1921 to play N, right during the franchise's most fragile financial years.
Okay, wait, I am trying to wrap my head around the psychology of that transition.
It's a lot to process.
Right. You have guys like Ladrow and Rosenow surviving the literal horrors of trench warfare. I mean, mustard gas, constant artillery barrages, unimaginably horrific conditions.
The worst conditions imaginable.
And they finally make it home to the safety of Wisconsin. Why on earth would they strap on primitive leather gear and just smash into each other on frozen dirt? Like, was early football just a substitute for the intensity and the trauma they experienced in the trenches?
That is a phenomenal question. And to answer it, we have to look at the mechanics of how the U.S. military operated at the time.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, during World War I, The U.S. Army expanded from about 127,000 soldiers to over 4 million men.
Wow, that is a massive jump.
Huge. And when millions of soldiers returned home, they brought back something that fundamentally transformed American working-class culture.
Which was what?
Military discipline and squad-based unit cohesion.
Yeah.
You see, before the war, football was essentially a chaotic, rugby-style sandlot scramble. Just guys running around.
Kind of a free-for-all.
Exactly. But these returning veterans, they understood how to move on a cadence. They understood how to execute an assigned tactical role while under extreme physical duress.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they literally took military drilling and applied it to the gridiron.
So, wait, you're saying the very structure of how modern football is played, like linemen blocking in unison, running synchronized plays, that is a direct byproduct of military tactical training bleeding into civilian sports.
Exactly. Men like Ladrow and Rosenow brought a mechanized, disciplined approach to the game. And it was really about American working-class endurance.
Because they were still working regular jobs, right?
Oh, absolutely. They were working full-time jobs at the packing plants and playing for virtually nothing, just to keep the team afloat.
Just grinding it out.
Yeah. Without that specific doughboy generation bringing their military grit and synchronized teamwork back to Green Bay, the Packers franchise likely would have gone bankrupt and folded in its first decade.
That is just wild to think about. So the foundation of Lambeau Field isn't just concrete and steel. It is literally the tactical discipline brought back from the Western Front.
Spot on.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Don't go anywhere.
And as we transition, I want to talk directly to you about a project that's very close to our hearts here. It's called Tales from the Frozen Tundra. Superfans of Titletown. It's the first major nonfiction release from Drekijฎrd Publishing, and it's a project that has been more than 7 months in the making.
That's really special.
It really is. This book isn't about the players or the coaches or the championships. It's about the fans. It's about the culture made in parking lots, in the stands, in communities, and in the people who dedicate their lives to carrying on these traditions. Tales from the Frozen Tundra is a celebration of those people and a chance to preserve their stories for future generations of Packers fans. So, to learn more about the book and follow the journey, you can visit the Tales from the Frozen Tundra Kickstarter page.
And returning to our timeline here, if we zoom out and look at the bigger picture, the veteran influence we just explored with World War I, it wasn't just a localized blip on the radar.
No, it kept going.
It really established the DNA of the Green Bay franchise for the next 100 years.
And to celebrate that incredible century of service, I want to present our second drink, which we built specifically for you to visualize as we move through this history.
This one is gorgeous.
Isn't it? This is the 1776 Layered Liberty Tea. It is visually striking. We start with 3 ounces of sweetened hibiscus tea right at the bottom. That heavy sugar keeps it dense, giving us a beautiful deep red layer.
Perfect base.
Then we take 2 ounces of sweetened coconut milk and pour it very carefully over the back of a spoon to create a stark white middle layer. Finally, we gently pour 3 ounces of unsweetened butterfly pea flower tea on top, which sits perfectly to give us a brilliant blue layer.
Red, white, and blue in a single glass. It's a fitting visual, too, because the scope of military eras represented in Green Bay's history is incredibly vast. I mean, as the nature of American warfare evolved, so did the soldier-athlete.
How so?
Well, we aren't just looking at the mass mobilization of World War I and World War II. We are tracing a legacy that moves into the bitter, freezing combat of Korea, the psychological standoff of the Cold War, the legendary Lombardy years where military readiness intersected with championship runs, all the way into the modern era of the post-9/11 all-volunteer force.
Man, just listening to the roll call of the names we're going to cover in this miniseries gives me chills.
It's quite a list.
Let me just run through some of these. Howard Smiley Johnson, Tony Canadeo, Clark Hinkle, Hal Van Every.
Absolute legends.
Right. Bob Forte, Wes Carlson, Ken Krantz, Darren College, Johnny Blood McNally, Willie Davis, Max McGee, and of course Paul Hornung. When I look at this list, it is like looking at a cross-section of a 250-year-old oak tree.
I like that.
Except every single ring of American history is painted green and gold.
That oak tree analogy is perfect, because just as tree rings tell you about periods of drought or harsh winters, these players reflect the state of the country.
They really do.
You can see when the team was absolutely hollowed out by the mass drafts of the 1940s. You can see how it navigated the targeted reserve activations of the 1960s, and how it was ultimately shaped by the deeply personal, voluntary enlistments of the 2000s.
So next time you are freezing in the stands at a game, I want you to think about how deeply connected those green and gold rings are to global history. We'll be right back after this short break.
Stick around, folks.
And while we take a beat, we'd like to take a moment to tell you about Sons of Lombardy. This is a phenomenal project dedicated to preserving the legacy of the Lombardy era and the specific fans who keep his spirit alive today through stories, community, and deeply held traditions. It's fantastic work.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive, everyone. So we've established the macro timeline, but now we really need to shift our focus to the deeply personal human experiences.
The individual stories.
Right. In our upcoming episodes, we are not just going to list facts. We want to explore the mechanisms of survival and the actual psychological weight these men carried.
And to ground us for this final preview segment, I am introducing the semi-quicentennial Sweet Amber.
That is a mouthful.
It is, but it's worth it. This is a malt-forward American amber ale, though you can absolutely substitute a sweet honey mead if you prefer. We are intentionally skipping the sharp, bitter bite of a modern IPA here.
Which I appreciate.
Yeah, instead, we are leaning into rich caramel and toasted bread notes. It is a direct homage to the early American brewing traditions that the nation's founders would have recognized 250 years ago.
It has a wonderfully complex profile, and, complexity is exactly what we are going to encounter as we explore the evolution of these soldier athletes in episodes 2 through 6.
Give us a taste of what's coming.
Okay, so in episode 2, we will focus on the World War II generation and how an entire league essentially paused its existence.
Just put everything on hold.
Yeah. We'll be looking deeply at Hal Van Every. He was a 1940 draft pick who traded his Packers helmet for a bomber jacket in the Army Air Forces.
Oh, wow.
He flew B-17s, was actually shot down on his 9th mission over Europe, and survived a brutal year as a prisoner of war in Stalag Luft III.
Wait, let me stop you right there. He went from playing in front of cheering crowds to being shot out of the sky in a tin can to surviving a year in a Nazi POW camp.
Yes.
I can't even fathom how someone comes back from that and just, goes back to playing a game. Did these guys ever talk about the psychological whiplash of that?
That is exactly the nuance we will explore. For many of these men, the physical deprivation of a camp like Stalag Luft III, surviving on meager rations and freezing barracks, it permanently altered their physical bodies and their relationship to violence.
I can only imagine.
So when Hall of Famers like Tony Canidio or Clark Kinkle returned from their service, or when the wild, unpredictable vagabond halfback Johnny Blood McNally came home, the game of football was no longer the most terrifying thing they had faced.
Right.
It was almost a sanctuary.
That makes total sense. The game is just a game after that. And how does that transition into the later eras?
Well, in episode 3, we move into Korea, the Cold War, and the Lombardy years. This is where the nature of service shifts from total global war to tense geopolitical standoffs.
A very different kind of stress.
Exactly. We are going to detail Bob Forte, who had his NFL career interrupted not once, but twice.
Wait, twice?
Twice. He served in both World War II and the Korean War, actually fighting under General George S. Patton.
Leaving the NFL twice to fight a war, that level of duty is just staggering.
It really is. And then we get into Lombardy's soldiers, guys like Willie Davis in the Army, and Max McGee as an Air Force pilot, and Paul Hornung.
Oh, Hornung has a crazy story.
He does. Hornung's story perfectly captures the tension of the era. His Army Reserve Unit was activated during the 1961 Berlin crisis, which prompted Vince Lombardi to call President John F. Kennedy directly just to get him weekend passes to play in NFL games.
Okay, I think we need to remind the listener of the actual stakes there. The 1961 Berlin crisis wasn't just some routine training exercise.
No, not at all.
The Soviet Union and the U.S. were in a literal hair-trigger standoff with tanks facing each other at Checkpoint Charlie. The Berlin Wall was going up. Nuclear war was a legitimate daily threat.
It was the brink.
And in the middle of that geopolitical powder keg, Vince Lombardi is using political capital with the President of the United States to get his halfback on the field for a Sunday game.
That is the surreal intersection of sports and military history we are talking about here. Lombardi viewed his football team with the exact same life-and-death intensity as a military operation.
Unbelievable.
Then episode 4, we examine modern service, focusing heavily on Darren College.
Okay, I have to jump in here and challenge the premise of the modern era, specifically looking at college.
Go for it.
Most of the historical guys we just talked about, the WW2 guys, the Korea guys, they had draft boards breathing down their necks. They left football to go serve because the entire country was mobilized. But college is a completely different story. He won Super Bowl XLV with the Packers. He achieved the absolute pinnacle of sports fame, wealth, and success.
He had it all.
And then, in 2016, well after retiring, he voluntarily enlists in the Idaho Army National Guard and deploys to Afghanistan as a Black Hawk medevac crew chief. Why? Why walk away from the safety of millions of dollars in retirement to fly unarmed helicopters into active combat zones?
It really forces us to examine the deep psychology of service. You see, a Black Hawk medevac crew's job is to fly directly into hot landing zones under fire to pull bleeding soldiers out of the dirt.
The highest stakes possible.
Exactly. For College, wearing the G on his helmet was a massive honor, but it ultimately paled in comparison to wearing the flag on his shoulder. It proves that the call of duty transcends the draft, it transcends fame, and it transcends wealth.
That's a powerful way to look at it.
He went from protecting Aaron Rodgers in a comfortable pocket to protecting wounded soldiers in the mountains of Afghanistan. The ethos of service we saw in 1919 with Ladrow and Rosenow was still beating in the chest of a Super Bowl champion a century later.
It's an incredible contrast, and I know episode 5 is going to be incredibly heavy as we honor the fallen Packer, Howard Smiley Johnson.
Yes.
Earning 2 silver stars for extraordinary heroism before being killed in action at the Battle of Iwo Jima. He is the only known Packer to die in combat.
Yes, his story requires a dedicated, solemn exploration, which will lead us perfectly into Episode 6, our Grand America 250 special finale.
These stories are just vital. We'll be right back after this short break.
See you in a minute.
Actually, before we close out today's deep dive, let's talk about how you, the listener, can help bring tales from the frozen tundra. Superfans of Titletown to life right now. The book is currently being funded through Kickstarter, which is a crowdfunding platform that allows creators and supporters to work directly together to make projects happen without a massive corporate publisher. There are several ways to support the campaign, including digital editions, signed paperback editions, signed hardcover editions, and special reward tiers created specifically for dedicated Packers fans. Check it out and be a part of preserving this culture.
As we look ahead, Episode 2 will take a magnifying glass to the World War II generation. That's the era that saw the greatest exodus of NFL talent to the front lines.
It's going to be intense.
It is. We will get into the mechanics of the B-17 bombers, the grim realities of the POW camps, and exactly what these Packers endured before coming back to the gridiron.
I want to remind you why we are doing this. This America 250 mini-series is about celebrating the nation's 250th birthday by looking through the specific lens of these veterans. Football is the common language that brings so many of us together on a Sunday, but it is their service that guarantees we have the freedom to enjoy it in the first place.
That is the core message right there. And I will leave you with a final reflection to mull over before we go.
Let's hear it.
Think about the frozen concrete of Lambeau Field today. It is legendary around the world because of the suffering, the freezing temperatures, and the physical endurance that fans and players willingly share together in that stadium.
It's a badge of honor.
Right. But is it possible that the famous resilience Green Bay demands on a Sunday is actually just a small, echoing reflection of the profound physical and mental endurance these veterans learned on the battlefields and brought back home?
Man, that gives you a lot to think about. We strongly encourage you to return for the next deep dive, to actively support the Tales from the Frozen Tundra Kickstarter, and most importantly, share this series with your fellow fans. We need to pass these memories down. Happy birthday, America.
Go.